one. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting film journey here on Inside Movies Galore. I am one of your hosts, but tonight we are going to be going and doing a, believe it's a new theme, right?
No, we've done already in this theme.
Okay, we've already done a movie in this theme, but we're still in the second film in this theme.
Yep.
So, Brandon, why don't you tell us a little bit about this Disney film that will never show up on Disney Plus?
Okay, well, the theme of this month is I call it Disney of my youth. Originally, it was going to be Disney films of the 70s, 80s, and 90s to cover all of our young periods. But I have a reason for making it 70s and 80s. And that's because in the 90s, Disney started to sanitize all of their live action films, making them less experimental, not that they were like raunchy, but they went a little bit further than what you would have normally they'd be willing to go 90s up, when we had the real kind of prevalence of Disney going full on G. So the film for tonight is the 1980 film Midnight Madness by directors Michael Nankin and David Wechter. So this film is about groups of college students handpicked by Leon the man to go on a scavenger hunt that lasts all night. These 5 teams receive clues to help them move to the final prize in this madcap comedic adventure. So, I guess we'll start in the middle here. So, Tammy, is this your first time seeing Midnight Madness?
Yes, it definitely was. I thought it was amusing. I mean, I didn't go to like that type of a college or anything, but you could definitely tell the pranking in it, and the different groups, the geeks and the jacks and so definitely tell all that in there. I thought it was a kind of a unique concept, the whole scavenger hunt type of thing and everything. It was amusing about, and then seeing how each group actually figured this stuff out, because they all figured it out like differently, to come up with it for the next clue, and then for the next one. It was really amusing to see how each one got to the next one, So yeah, I thought it was fun.
Yeah, definitely. That's how I felt. So, let's see here. So, Jake, was this your first time with Midnight Madness?
Yes, it was. This is one that I have to say I'm not so sure that I had ever heard of it prior. If I had, not except in passing.
So the video was correct when it said that most people probably would never have heard of this.
Pretty much, yeah. And I agree with the guy. I could definitely see how this could potentially have a future as a cult classic, especially if Disney does try to scrub it from existence. That would be Now, I'm not sure they would necessarily do that, but they're definitely not promoting it. Now, I could be wrong, but I swear when I saw it, I saw the Buena Vista label, not the Walt Disney label. But I know that you put it up in our project on Disney films as something that was released directly by Disney.
Yes, Walt Disney did release it in theaters.
Yes, but did they release it under the Disney banner or the Buena Vista banner? Because, like I said, I swear it said Buena Vista when I watched it. Did anyone else see that?
According to the Wikipedia, which again, that can be flawed.
Well, it's Wikipedia.
the entire list of Disney theatrical, not DVD. So it's very possible that it was released under Buena Vista for the DVD release.
Buena Vista was a theatrical outfit that they used to put out some of their more unusual stuff. But anyway, it is interesting to think about, regardless of which banner they used.
Though on the DVD cover, it does have Walt Disney Studios on it. So,
okay. Well, yeah, DVD could have anything on there. But anyway, the movie is definitely interesting. You get the strong impression that they were trying essentially to be Animal House light. And the fact that they've got Stephen Furst in such a major role just even helps to underscore that. Although I have to say, he is a lot more of an asshole here than he was in Animal House. That is, it's not even close.
Okay. To answer your question, I'm looking it up on IMDb Pro.
Uh-huh.
So it's for its distribution, it had a Buena Vista and Walt Disney production split. So the answer is yes.
There you go. So it was interesting. It was interesting seeing Disney try their hand at something a little more raunchy, a little bit more of a spiritual neighbor to movies like Animal House and hell, even Porky's I would almost put in here. This is nowhere near as raunchy as either of those, but there's a bit of the same spirit. And it was really interesting seeing a very, very young Michael J. Fox and a very, very young Paul Rubens. And it was interesting seeing. I'm reminded of the Shakespeare line about the sound and fury signifying nothing. Is kind of what this is all about. I mean, the prize that they're promised is basically a trophy and bragging rights. I mean, it turns out there's a banquet at the end, but that wasn't what they were promised. So for all they knew, they were wasting their time. And it is not a... they do all kinds of silly-ass stuff for... You know, it just really strikes one that they could have. What am I trying? I can't words right now for some reason. Basically, it was a lot of effort expended on all the parties for not a whole heck of a lot of reason. And there was some very, 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 very serious overacting. And overall, I agree. The guy in that video you put up, he straight up admitted that the movie is stupid as hell. And it is in almost every way, but I will admit it is a lot of fun. And I know one of your cardinal rules is, and I don't, it's not a cardinal rule for me, but it's a big one, is it's really frustrating when it's really hard finding people you actually want to root for. This film is populated by idiots and assholes, and only a few of them are worth rooting for. So it's not a perfect film by any stretch of the imagination, but it was fun, and I'm glad I finally saw it. I will probably have to try to track down a copy, if only in case of Disney attempting to get rid of it.
It is out of print. But I don't think it's not super expensive. At least not the last time. Well, not when I bought the thing.
Right.
It was out of print. No. Expensive.
Actually, though, I just had a thought, and I will be. That's enough for my opening.
I just want to say something quick. Can you guys believe after watching? We know that this is Michael J. Fox's first film or whatever. We said that.
I don't know if it's his first, but definitely.
Can you believe he's 19 years old in this film?
He didn't look it.
No, he definitely did not look 19. He looked like
a 15-year-old, right?
But he was 19 because he was born in 61.
Well, the thing is, in the mid 80s, where he really became a star, he was mostly playing teens then too. So,
I mean, he had it. He's always looked young.
Yeah.
So I can't really go fully off of that, but yeah, I mean, yeah, he started acting not long before this film.
Yeah.
This doesn't feel like an 80s film, though. It feels like more of a 70s film. So
well, it was like the start of the 80s.
This is his first. Now, this is his first theatrical film.
Yeah.
Man, he was on Lou Grant.
Yeah. Today, Dave, to your point, this was released in February of 1980. So, yes, for all intents and purposes, this is a 70s film that just happened to come in 1980.
Well, listen to the theme song. You could tell.
Oh, yeah. And I do have to point out, I'm looking at the trailer here, and it just reminded me of two last things I want to mention. I mentioned how hard it is to find people to root for. My God, those twins. Oh, my God. Their laugh was so annoying. And I will say...
I need to isolate that laugh.
The fact that Disney had a guy jump into a vat of beer and declare it his greatest day of existence... I found that very amusing.
Little spirit animal. So,
especially PBR. My God, set your sights higher, man.
Well, this is college. These are college jocks.
It'd be like our school in Natty Light, that's like oh well.
All right, so Dave, was this your first time with Midnight Madness?
To be honest, yes. I would have to say seeing it in its full entirety. I don't know why, but for some reason, I seem to remember the moment when you actually see Pee-wee come out, and for some reason, the moment where Michael J. Fox is talking to the dog. And tells her about like the birthday. I don't know why, but it echoes something that I've seen. But I don't think I knew what it was or when and where. I can't place where I've seen that before, but I'm glad that I know I have a title to the name or a title to go with the scenes. So, but yeah, and I know you sent us something to look at to go along with this, and the guy on there was saying something about how this was inappropriate. I'm trying to. It's not as, to me, it's not as zany as Animal House was.
Well,
You
it's
know?
not going to be.
Oh,
They're not
no,
going to go that
not
far.
at all.
And he was saying that it was in the vein of that. No, I actually think this film is in the vein of The Great Race, Rat Race,
Yeah.
It's a Mad, Mad World.
Yeah.
Those
That seems to
type
be
of
a college kind of a college comedy in those.
It's not
movies.
really a college comedy, though. You don't see a school at all involved with these guys. You just
You
see the
do.
cliques of these people. You don't really see the school.
Well, you don't see the school itself, but there are definitely scenes that take place in the school.
Don't you in those opening scenes where the girls are going around recruiting people? I could.
Oh yeah, that's true. They were, yeah.
Yeah, but in the very beginning, and it didn't take place necessarily in the school, and
No.
all that jazz. So that's why I don't consider it in that realm of, clarity. I know. I know you guys probably think otherwise, but I don't fully put this in a college dramedy type thing. I just think it's a comedy that involves a bunch of cliches that happen in school that happen after midnight, and it's cool. So I thought it was cool. Leon kind of reminds me of some of the hippies that show up and destroy all humans too, but
Yeah. Let's see here.
it was enjoyable. I thought it was funny.
Well, Dave, as far as the college thing, where is it? I always hate it when I'm looking for something and I cannot find it.
I just didn't see enough of a college to consider it, call it an alpha beta phi comedy.
Oh, there it is. Well, I have one thing to say about that. And I think it works well for both of ours.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Indeed.
But any case, is that your first impression, Dave?
Yeah. I mean, of course, when Michael J. Fox first shows up, you're like, "Damn, he's still got his baby face." But other than that, I mean, Pee Wee Herman shows up. Of course, Dexter's Laboratory, Tori's voice shows up.
Oh yeah.
So some of those characters are memorable. Oh, and the American Werewolf in London shows up in here. So.
Oh yeah, that is the same guy, isn't he?
So, all right. Well, I will go ahead and so the original time I heard about Midnight Madness was when I was watching Disney December, which is a month-long coverage of Disney programs and stuff on Channel Awesome, which most have avoided naming the individual who does it. I don't share necessarily some of the anger or whatnot at the person. But I always look at Disney December as a less eccentric view of these things, more just a straightforward analysis. And I looked at this and I was like, I never heard of this. This sounds incredibly fun. And then I looked at it and I saw it was out of print. And I was like, well, this is probably going to go up someday. Because usually films covered on those channels tend to be bought up. So I went ahead and got me a copy. And then I watched it with Kim. And we were both amused at seeing Michael J. Fox in it. And both of us looked at it and we're like, yeah, it's not as raunchy as it was kind of portrayed to be, but for Disney to release it for Disney to even under the Buena Vista to have the Disney logo in front of it is still something that you would not see them do today. Not this film.
No, just Deadpool and Wolverine.
And even then, I want to say, actually, Disney's gotten a little bit more ballsy about it with the Marvel titles.
Yeah.
Even then, they had to fight for that R rating.
Yeah.
But as far as this film is concerned, I really enjoyed it. And then when it came around to, it's like, oh, well, I've got a theme. And I was thinking about this film for some reason. So I decided this was really, which got me into thinking about the, that and the fact that I was doing a little project on my channel with Jake about Disney releases. And it brought this back to my mind again. So I was like, you know what? Let's cover this film. It won't be a good theme around that, because sometimes my themes are basically around, I want to cover this film. What's a good theme to put around it? And so I said Disney of my youth, because the 80s would have been my youth for Disney. And I found the 70s and 80s tended to have a similar vibe with live action. I mean, earlier 70s had closer to the 60s vibe, but I'd say 75 to 85, it had that same basic vibe to it. A little bit more edgy than standard Disney films in the 90s up, but still just, you could tell that it was just in that, like, we're still Disney feel to it. So I still find this highly amusing. It held up on the second viewing very well for me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I guess I'll go ahead and get into this. So the movie centers around a few people. One, of course, Leon, who is the games master. I'm trying to see, who is Leon played by? He's not listed under the main portion of the cast. Of course he wouldn't be. But Leon is the games master, and apparently he's this mysterious dude who has a lot of resources for a college kid.
Yeah.
Yet does fear being evicted.
Yeah.
You think with the resources at this guy's command, especially with the pull he has in the various areas he's committed to this scavenger hunt and the research, he would have had a lot behind him. But then again, as was quoted in the other video, I guess we don't need to be thinking about that.
Right.
But before we move on to the actual main players, what are your thoughts about Leon as a character?
Well, he's an interesting guy. I mean, very mysterious in some ways. He has two very cute assistants who seem remarkably on board with whatever he's doing.
I would call him a hippie nerd with groupies.
Yeah, they pretty much are groupies in a way. It's crazy.
Doesn't seem like the kind of guy that you would have that kind of level of respect from all of the cliques.
Right.
I mean, every single one, like the bad guys, the jocks, the nerds, everybody. Yeah.
I'm not sure that respect is the right word, because when he's revealed, they're all
Leon.
like, Leon. But as the movie goes on, he seems to have sort of a silver tongue, like, except for his landlady, who is obsessed with evicting him. Everyone else, all of his other neighbors, get really into the game and end up basically supporting him fully. It's like, it's crazy. It's like almost except for the woman who, you gotta have a villain in a movie like this. I mean, she basically takes the place of Dean Wormer in this film. And I mean, it really is almost the exact same thing. Like, Wormer's trying to do everything he can to evict the one fraternity from, or to kick him off campus. This woman's trying to do everything she can to evict Leon, and she is dug into that role and will not change. But other than her, basically, he convinces everyone he talks to. It's like, this dude really does have it made if he wants to.
Yeah, he does. He has got some power.
Yeah.
Anyone else on Leon?
He's just a drip throughout the whole thing, and his goons that end up showing up as like almost like Jehovah's Witness type characters.
He has, like I say, he has an amazing amount of reach.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, this goes beyond him planning really, really well, which he did plan really, really well. But I mean, he did things that's like, well, holy crap, what kind of resources does this guy have?
And, I mean, and we look at why they were playing this game.
Yeah.
He had a way of getting to each of the team leaders, and in many cases playing them against one another, to where he managed to increase the rivalry. With the exception of the blue team, which he kind of used the guy's father as leverage.
Well, no, that one was all about rivalry because his father.
Well, yeah, but his father was the one that said, "You got to do this."
Yeah, well, exactly. But there was a rivalry between the two of them. It's just Harold was so friggin' lazy, he didn't really care to follow through on it until he was threatened. You got to follow through on this.
So, looking at all of these particular players, that was really what it was about. It wasn't about the prize; it was about beating the other teams.
Yeah.
At the end, and I guess bragging rights in that way. Like I say, goes back to Leon being somebody that getting a trophy like that from him apparently meant something.
Which really makes you wonder, with the resources at his disposal, you got to think some of them probably felt cheated that he wasn't offering some sort of big prize.
Well, I'm sure Leon was spending most of that money on repairing most of the damage they've done.
Oh, I see our main character ended up going on to be in Sharknado 5 Global Swarming, among other things.
Great. Potential contender for next month. So let's get into the teams. I'm just going to list the teams off themselves, and then we'll just talk about them one by one team wise, and then we'll get into the actual story, or really the challenges, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll start with the main team, the good guy team, supposedly, which would be the yellow team, led by Adam, who is the school counselor.
Mm-hmm.
Not Deborah, sorry, that's the actress. Laura, who becomes his love interest. Flinch, who was kind of the guy going for counseling from Adam, getting love advice and so on. And Marvin, who is kind of the mechanic and basically takes care of the vehicle there.
Well, he's also the token black guy. No offense.
Well, there's another one on the sports team, but yeah. But then we've got, of course, Michael J. Fox, who plays Scott, who is Adam's younger brother, who Adam basically ignores unless Scott gets into trouble.
Well, he ends up getting recruited because he's running away from home, and Adam's like, "I don't have time for this. You just hang out with me tonight," and
And I'm going to admit, the relationship between Adam and Scott is one of the few things that, other than Adam being a little bit 2D in some ways, is one of the main things that left Adam from being a truly likable character for me.
Well, he's a straight up ass to his brother. And
like he's a nice guy to everybody else, but then his brother comes up, he's a total dick.
And then it actually causes a little bit of friction between Adam and Laura. Although I'm going to be honest, the fact that it didn't cause more friction between them, I thought was example. The movie, this is partly the time frame, the kind of movie it was trying to be, and also the fact that it was a Disney film. There's a lot of problematic behavior in this movie that pretty much gets brushed aside, swept under the rug, or laughed off. And the way Adam treats Scott is douche as all hell. And the fact that Laura doesn't hold him to account for it is pretty sad too. She talks to him about it, but she should have held his feet to the fire a lot more than she did.
She kind of hero worshipped him at first.
Yeah.
And then they fall in love.
Of course.
But
it's nowhere near as toxic as the relationship between Lucille and Harold. But
well, let's do a quick run by on the yellow team. So, what are y'all's thoughts about the yellow team in general?
Well, Laura is very likable. I think she's one of the most likable characters in the whole movie. And she's the easiest one. Flinch also, they overplay his sort of loser nerdiness at the beginning.
I love how he just suddenly gets those girls' numbers by just jumping in and carjacking them.
When he finally decides... Actually, that's how Laura gets Adam to do the thing in the first place, is he's advising Flinch to go for it, never break down from a challenge and all this stuff. And then he backs down from challenge. And she's like, you need to follow your own advice. And then Flinch later on holds him to the same account of, you let us down, man, but Flinch takes over and he becomes this confident guy who, yes, gets the girls' numbers.
Well, I also find it funny that part of that like fire lit under the pants about him taking Fletch with him was the girl that he was set up with. Just like, no, I can't leave you to that. That's also problematic.
It's a little problematic too that Flinch goes and asks. It's interesting that Flinch says that he's not a virgin, but he's never had a date, which there's some implications there that they weren't going to point out in a Disney film.
Well, there was a ton of innuendo in that. There was like, we're not going to go out and say this because it's a Disney film,
right?
But we're not going to shy away from indicating things if you can do 2 + 2 in your head.
but the whole idea, and I'm going to say, is this is one where it does hit a little close to home, that it really does piss me off from time to time, that we have a society that basically says if you have any worth, you are in a relationship, and if you don't, fuck you. And that pardon my French, but that pretty much is how society is set up. And this movie, the way he treats Flinch, underscores that very loudly. Like, if you get a date, you will be more popular. You will be a successful student. Your grades will go up. Everything will be roses. And then he gets a date with an ugly girl. And he's like, no, man, you got to come with me.
Gotta save you from this. So how about the rest of y'all? What are y'all's thoughts about the yellow team? Dave? Tammy?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, I wasn't muted. The yellow team, well, I think they're kind of do-gooders most of the time. I think the Adam was hard to get behind at first because of his relationship with his brother. I mean, it took him a while to come around to him, at least through that.
Mm-hmm.
As far as Laura, I mean, she's kind of like the fulcrum of the group. She's kind of the one that kind of figures out most of the clues. I mean, the mechanic, he figures out one of them, but she figures out the rest of them. You know, so
I think a couple of them figured, but yeah, she was definitely really smart. Yeah, of course, when it came to actually doing the clues, they spread it around a little bit. Like they each had their own strengths that were important for that. But
I like the yellow team because I think the yellow team was so easy. Everybody on there was very easy to relate to.
Yeah.
That's why I think I really like the yellow team, because they seem like these are the ones that I probably would have hung out with, you know? So.
Well, why don't we move from relatable to not so much as we talk about the blue team, which is, I guess, the villain team of this group, led by Harold, played by Stephen First, who's kind of I always think of him as the son of Bluto from National Lampoon's. He's like Bluto raised wealthy with a little bit more intelligence from the wife, and totally evil. Bluto was kind of self-serving anyway.
Bluto was, but he was a kind of a lovable goof. He did end up with that wasp wife, though, so I guess her influence.
Maybe it's like I always think of myself like they saw National Lampoon's Animal House, and they decided to say what would look like with the wife and him getting together. What would their son do?
Horrible thought, scary thought.
Yeah.
But,
then you got his girlfriend Lucille.
Yeah.
And the Three Stooges, Melio, Barf, and Blade.
You know, you said the Three Stooges, but you know who Melio and Barf reminded me of, especially the way they laughed. I was thinking Beavis and Butthead.
Now, was Blade the one that was the dude who was doing the ball puzzle?
No, Blade was the one who never talked. So
was it? Which one was it? Was it Barf then? Who was the one that was like who totally got the ball puzzle screwed up? I can't remember.
I think so. I think you're right. I think so.
I can't attach names to faces.
I mean, I'm looking at this face here, and I feel like it was that guy, but him and Melio were kind of interchangeable.
But this team was particularly interesting because one, they're the bad guys technically.
Well,
and
two, he was like the male version of Veruca Salt.
Much more sloppy than Veruca, though.
Well, if you put Augusta Gloop and Veruca Salt together and they had a love child, that would be Harold.
Even more than Bluto and Mrs. Blutarski. Yes, I think you hit the nail on the head. If Augustus Gloop and Veruca Salt had a child, I think that's who this guy was. And yes, Willy Wonka would have failed him very quickly.
It's kind of sad, but I look at the wives as the worst part of those combinations both.
Yeah. And again, Lucille's no prize either. She's basically a harpy who's always nagging him about dieting.
Yep.
But on the other hand,
marshmallows in the van.
His daddy outfits him with a basically love pad van.
And the computer that can solve riddles without even context in the riddle.
It's even got Atari games on it. He was playing Breakout, the game, on it at one point in time. But he tries to stash some Nabisco cookies and some marshmallows in the van, and he gets caught by his buddy who seems to rat him out to his girlfriend all the time.
See, now if I'm rich, even in 1980, if I was rich and I was just going to be like and I was trying to cheat on my diet, I would think of some better stuff than those.
Yeah. Yeah. This kid doesn't really feel like he's the sharp. He's not the sharpest tool in the shed, as they say.
Yeah, I would have gone with some gummy worms or Swedish fish, to be honest.
Right. So I wanted to ask if anyone else felt like Harold's father is played by Dave Shelley, and he's had a lot of minor roles. He wasn't really like super well known. Did anyone else think he looked a hell of a lot like the dude from All in the Family? Or
he did.
And it was like, I wonder if that was intentional casting. But I don't know.
I mean, yeah, the team was very comically evil in a lot of ways. They didn't strike me as competent in the slightest. Maybe Lucille is a little bit more competent than the rest, but even then, I mean, the fact that they pretty much lost their lead because she made them go back to get a Burger Boy doll.
Well, they also lost their league because they were leaning so hard on this computer, which short-circuited when someone had stuffed marshmallows inside.
Well, yeah. The girl's name wasn't Negan.
Any other thoughts on the blue team? Anybody here? Okay, actually, I should be asking this beforehand. So, I'm going to just ask if you were rooting for one of these teams to win. Everybody should have had a team that they were rooting for at least a little bit. Yeah. So we'll start with the yellow team, and then we'll keep going down. So, Dave, were you rooting for the yellow team to win?
I was either rooting for the yellow team or the nerdy team.
How about you, Jacob? Were you rooting for the yellow team?
Oh, yeah, it was definitely the yellow team. I mean, if there was... No, definitely the yellow team.
How about you, Tammy? Were you rooting for the yellow team?
Yes.
Was anybody rooting for the blue team?
Oh, hell no. They needed to go down.
No.
They were the ones you did not want to see win.
So the next one is kind of like the sorority
team. I didn't want to
team.
see the green ones win either.
So, well, let's go down to the red team.
Uh-huh.
Oh, God. Those
which is
were pathetic.
Donna, Burl, and the Giggle.
Lulu and Peggy.
Yeah.
The
Them
twins.
two were annoying.
Oh,
So,
my
yeah,
God.
Burl was sort of like the women's lib type character who came off in a way that probably is stereotypical. Then, of course, Peggy and Lulu came right out of the Todd Browning's films, and then of course in a combination with that Santa Claus movie from Mexico with that reindeer, and then finally Donna, who was kind of the leader, who had a bone to pick with the jocks for a good reason.
There was a bit of rivalry between these two houses, and it went beyond just rivalry. The jocks were downright.
I feel so like some of that might have been ad-libbed.
Hmm?
I mean, they opened a keg on them.
They crashed a sorority. It was basically like a rush party, which there's no reason for them to be there unless they were specifically invited. And they crashed the party and trashed it with a keg. So it's like
Robot House.
Yeah, exactly. Those dang robots.
What are y'all's thoughts about the yellow team?
Oh,
the yellow team. We already did the yellow team.
Sorry, not the yellow team, red team.
I mean, if they of the damn twins, it might have been half decent, but
but really, together they just sounded like chipmunks, and they didn't really speak.
Yeah. It's like
annoying as fuck.
Donna she was sort of like a dark version of Laura. Like it, and honestly, at first I thought they looked a lot alike, and then I was like, yeah, maybe not as much. But she was just like, she was the only semi-normal one in the sorority, but she was not. She was so bent on revenge on the green team.
Because her number 2 in the group was this mousy-looking Peter Panish-looking girl.
Yeah. Yeah. So they were an okay team. It was like I was kind of rooting for them to do better than some of the others. I was, but they were. Every time the twins were on screen, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
The twins reminded me of Alice in Wonderland. The
Tweedledum and Tweedledee.
Yes. Tweedledum and Tweedledee, but more annoying. Yeah. Okay, well there you go. That'd be like if someone crossed Tweedledum and Tweedledee with the reindeer from Santa Claus.
Well, here, let me play a little bit from them. You'll hear the sound.
Maybe
they sound like weird animals, don't they?
I didn't hear anything.
Oh, let me put it up here then. Hold on. Okay, I will put this back in, and just so people can get an idea as to the twins, because everybody loves the twins, right? Let's see here. Share screen. We're going to do that, and we're going to allow audio.
Oh no, there they go.
Oh, there they go.
They sound like a couple of chipmunks.
Yeah, that's
More
what I
said.
You can barely understand what they say too. So it's like high-pitched whinny.
It's like one of the few times they talk.
Like a couple of loons imitating chipmunks.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to the white team.
Okay.
So the
A
white
couple
team
of
is
very oversized chipmunks.
so the white team is the nerds team, and really and truly, there's only one member that even has a character name, which is Wesley, played by Eddie Deason. The others are Debater 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
And Eddie Deason is of course known from as Dave says, Dexter's Lab. He's actually known for playing these nerdy type of characters.
Yep.
He's also
in your
he recognized him from Welcome Back, Mr. Cotter.
I thought so, but it wasn't.
Oh,
another famous part
It
was
in Greece, though.
he did the voice of the one kid, the kind of nerdy kid in who's obsessed with trains on the Polar Express.
Right. Who's credited as Know-It-All.
And
when I looked him up, he's done a lot of voices.
Yep.
Unfortunately, he's got some. He's had some. What do they call it? Some.
He's like a nerdy version of Jerry Lewis.
Apparently, multiple episodes of the Weird Al show.
Yeah, he has that. He has that perfect nerd voice.
And Spy Hard.
I can't say that there was any better nerd voice than that one.
Yeah.
So, any thoughts? Did anybody here root for the red team to win? Yeah.
Like I said, I was not rooting for an ignominious defeat, but
yeah, like Dave, I was actually between the yellow team and the white team. A lot of the times, just because I usually would identify with the nerds, even though I never really fell in with them fully, because I wasn't quite smart enough for the nerds for the most part, but I had more in common with them than their opposites. So
I felt like they went way over the top to the point of straight up mocking nerds, and
yeah,
that wasn't my favorite thing. But
well, they were all caricatures except for
Yeah.
maybe the yellow. The yellow team was the only one that wasn't fully characterized.
right, they still fit archetypes.
Yeah,
but
they
yeah.
did.
The and Eddie Deason does have that very distinctive voice that is interesting. The white team, I wasn't rooting for them, but again, I kind of wanted them to do better than the others. Yeah.
So last but not least, we have.
Well, I was gonna say I was kind of in a little bit worried, rooting for the white team a little bit,
Actually, there was one surprise between the white team and the red team with Donna getting kind of together with Wesley. That was weird. But hey, more power to them.
Well, essentially, the green team ended up trashing their truck, and they end up having to go around on mopeds with the white team.
And in all fairness, they both had a common enemy.
Yes,
They both hated the one. I mean, they start out. Now, admittedly, I'm going to in the defense of the green team, which I would normally hate anyway, because I have a past issue with bullying and sports groups. I will say, with them starting off with a lecture on how they should ban sports teams from college campuses, I'm not going to say that they probably had what was coming to them in that particular.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
I'm not gonna deny them their right to defend themselves in the best way that they understand how. Speaking of the football team, let's talk about the green team. We've got their leader, Levitas, which appears to be the brain of the team. That's not saying much. Then we got Blaylock.
Who actually aspired to be the Bluto of the team, if I'm remembering which character's which.
Kudzo and Gerber,
And
who was the other person of color in the
and Armpit.
Yep.
Yes. Such lovely
Right.
such lovely team members
Right.
there. They are of course the typical rowdy football players and jocks, and they love to party, and they really love beer.
So much so that Blaylock actually got one of the clues.
Yeah, because of his love for beer.
It was Leon had them go to a piano museum, and they had something called Leon's theme, and everyone had their own way of solving it. And in their case, they just played the theme, and he's like, I know that song anywhere. It was the PBR jingle.
Blue Ribbon theme song or something like that.
Yeah, it was the jingle for Pabst Blue Ribbon. Yeah.
So what did y'all think?
The Pabst beer factory used to be here in Wisconsin, believe it or not. So,
As most beer were back in the day.
Of course, this one took place in LA, but
Right.
Yeah, I didn't like the green team at all. They were out and out jerks.
Does anybody actually say that they wanted the green team to win?
no.
No. Although, again, the fact that one of them had the greatest day of his life,
Yes, that was
jumping
amazing.
into a vat of beer, I'm not going to begrudge him that. Especially because he got sick later and forced them to make an emergency stop.
Which led them to the next clue.
Yeah.
But they were they were definitely the most destructive team.
Yeah.
they seemed to destroy everything they came in contact with.
Yep,
Yeah.
they backed up the red team's truck into a ravine.
Although, in fairness, the most single destructive character may be Harold. I think he's probably the one that broke or destroyed the most things on a per person.
Oh, yeah. Like I say, the blue team and the green team were not all that different in a lot of ways. The blue team only edged them out by being full on evil. So, other than them, there were a couple of cast of note. We already talked about Michael J. Fox. And there were a few others that were in the background. I mean, John Fiedler was, Fiedler, there we go, was one that I thought was a cool note. He didn't speak much, but when you hear his voice, it's very iconic because he was a big voice actor for Disney.
He was in a lot of just important films over the years, including 12 Angry Men. Jeez. But he was the voice of Piglet, huh?
Yeah.
Oh.
He's been in a lot of things, and that makes it. Sadly, of course, he passed in 2005. But then again, a lot of the cast probably has passed at this point,
right?
At least the older cast members. But still, it's just kind of cool to see some of these alums in this film, even as extras. It kind of gives it the extra Disney feel to it.
Oh, that's right. He had a Cheers appearance. Okay. Good times.
So, any thoughts about other cast before we move on? Oh, well, there's Pee Wee Herman also.
Yes.
And yes. I gotta say, I did like that gun that had produced change. That he
I had to put that up as my image there, because not only Paul Rubens, but that outfit was wow. I would not want to have to wear that to work.
So, I'm going to need some help with the order of things. I'm just going to run down fairly quickly, but and we'll talk as it goes. The basic thing is they are all given a clue. Yep. And it's a pretty simple clue. The first one is eventually the clue is stars, and it leads to the observatory. And of course, you have another one of your raunchy jokes. They don't really show what that kid was looking at through the telescope, but I'm pretty sure I knew exactly what it was.
They do. I mean, well, they probably don't show everything he saw, but yeah, the kid was looking at Venus in a manner of speaking, and they're like, "Venus is over there." And then his father is anxiously waiting for his turn. It's like, I guess you should probably mention that the landlord, Miss Grimhouse, interesting name for a landlord. It's Irene Tedrow.
Always trying to get everyone in trouble.
Yeah. Leon's groupies go by the names of Candy and Sunshine. And then we have the security captain, who I feel like, and I could be wrong, I wonder what anyone else thinks about this. I wonder if Kevin Smith was intentionally making a nod to this guy in Mallrats.
You know, I could see Kevin Smith watching this film at some point in life and going, I like that.
Right.
It reminds me a little bit of police officer Hightower in Police Academy, but I know
yeah, could see that.
Yeah, I do think it was funny that she calls the police and the police end up arresting her instead. Because Leon's managed to convince the entire apartment complex that they're on board, so there's no complaint because none of the people in the complex, all of them are in the apartment with him.
Right.
It was an interesting thing, and I love that board that he had. But we've talked about kind of how they all got into it. I mean, the jocks were basically at the throats of the nerds and and I guess the sorority girls, and the yellow team, they had their own purposes of going. The blue team, mainly there was a rivalry, but it was more his father's rivalry, and he's like, "Yeah, you spent that much money. I guarantee you better win this."
It's like
fear drove him on.
Wasn't it like, I think it was Adam and Harold's fathers were either friends or acquaintances, and like Harold looked at Adam and said, now there's a kid that's going places. And at one point, Harold just straight says, well, what do you see when you look at me? And he looks him up and down, and then he's like, ugh. And it's like, oh my God, that is, I mean, even if it's deserved, that's harsh coming from your own dad.
If he hadn't wanted to make some s'mores on the van, he would have maybe been able to cheat his way all the way through.
Yeah. Let's see. It was after that. Now, again, y'all have to. Okay, what was the next one? I know that the restaurant was sometime near that.
Well, I believe the second clue was the piano museum, wasn't it?
Okay.
It was like 88 million keys, I think, was like that.
Or was it the burger place?
I think it was the burger place and then the piano museum, because the piano museum led straight to the Pabst Blue Ribbon one.
No, because the burger place led to
it's like Ha.
What's that?
It was like something like Ha or Hug or something. Was
Hug Me.
Didn't they have a place
that led to the miniature golf course?
That was the golf course. So,
okay.
So maybe it was later on then. So then probably the piano one
place led to the
place that had melody in it.
So the piano place was funny. I liked how this was one of the few things, because the blue team was there first because they had the computer at the time. Yeah. And I'll admit, it was probably one of the most amusing things I saw the blue team do, where they just suddenly went into this like this musical number.
Yeah, where Dumb and Dumber just started playing
with the organ and all that. That's what that was.
Yeah. What's the was it Chopsticks or what was it they were playing?
I can't remember what the name of it was, but it's the same one that they played in Big. And
that was Chopsticks.
Yeah.
Chopsticks is I've played that a million times on the piano. I know that one by heart.
Okay.
That's the first thing you learn on piano.
Yeah. Well, no. Yeah, I guess so.
Well, first thing I learned on piano growing up.
I was going to say one of the few things I learned was the main hook from Jurassic Park, but
I mean, I even knew how to do like do. Yeah, it's definitely not that. I can't.
And then like Ode to Joy. Everyone learns Ode to Joy on.
Let me see. What do they play?
Oh, actually, yeah, we could look at the
Big. Let's see here. Heart and Soul.
Heart and Soul. Okay, yeah, that sounds, I think, right.
So that was the so that's the whole. But again, I thought that was kind of funny. It was probably the most amusing thing I saw about the blue team. That and the whole ball thing at the when the guy was doing the clue later. But
yeah,
the rest of them, it was funny that it was the ones that got it right away were the jocks, because the guy knew the Pabst Blue Ribbon theme, which, by the way, that was one thing on the video, and I agree with it. It's like, what Disney film do you know of that would have the Pabst Blue Ribbon theme as one of the things?
Right.
Well, yeah, that is a little weird.
Right.
Yeah. And then they were like in Disneyland when they arrived at the
more like Coney Island.
Well, and here's the part where again we can talk about Willy Wonka, because when I was looking at it, that one dude, Blaylock, I swear he was like the kids in the Chocolate Factory. It was taking every ounce of self-control, but more to the point, all four of his teammates to keep him moving and with the tour, until finally he saw that vat of beer and he's like, okay, I'm done. And he just dove in.
So was it, so the one that came after that, I believe it was Scott, of course, got the yellow team kicked out because he was trying to get beer from the...
Yes, that's where it led to the restaurant, because they actually got put into the storeroom where Leon had had painted a
It's like, what
clue.
connections does this guy have?
Yeah. It's like they just happened to be putting this image up. I guess maybe they were waiting for.
Oh, they were timing that bad
Yeah.
boy. You knew they were.
But yeah, it's but it was what was the clue? Something like somebody's obese child. And then they thought about it, and I think
Mr. Carson's obese child.
Yes. And they were like, Mr. Carson, who the hell is Mr. Carson? But I think it was Adam and Marvin who got this clue. It was like Fat Boys Burgers. You know, they kind of thought of it at the same time, if I'm remembering correctly.
What was also funny was that was another one of the lewd jokes at that one, which was look between the melons, and they're all sitting there with like different types of melons.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, of course, we had a blatant, and I will admit, funny fat joke where they trash the yellow team's Jeep, Marvin's Pride and Joy. They like slash the tires, and Harold gets a great idea. Oh, I'm going to steal a hubcap for a souvenir. And then he happens to be standing right next to the Fat Boy sign, holding the hubcap in the same position that Fat Boy's holding the burger, and his whole team cracks up at the image. And then when they're leaving, his girlfriend insists on getting a Fat Boy doll to remind her of Harold. And I'm like, this is some sick ass fat jokes that would not fly now. But it's funny because it's Harold.
And of course, the Pabst Blue Ribbon is where the guy takes the dive into
yes.
But you could tell he was ready to crack anyway when they were talking. Yes, they keep it nice and cool. Probably the best condition this beer is ever going to be in. He's
that was a raging alcoholic.
He jumps in. But I do love how when they figure out that melons, which it's sad I got that right away when it was there, but I have that type of mind. You think they would as well, but that it was on the necklace she was wearing, the waitress was, and how each one of them decides to do something. Like they break something. It's like, hey, we need you over here, and they keep upping the ante until the blue team just like cracks the whole table down.
Yeah.
I spilled something.
And it's like at that point they're not even pretending. It's like
because I think
they can get a look at those huge tracts of land.
Well, the melons.
Exactly.
They're trying to get a view of the
fact that they were trying to see what was between the melons on their plates was kind of comical.
Yeah, like I said, I did think that was hilarious how they had different types too. They were like somebody had a watermelon.
Right.
And where they were getting them when it comes to this restaurant, I do not know. Like the restaurant just had a bunch of melons.
I'd like to know how much the restaurant was charging for all those melons.
But yeah, then I think that leads to the did that lead
to the miniature golf course?
Because so it was the and of course the blue team decides to try and cheat. He even had a prereq for that because the answer was not on the last hole. And
they were told right up front, don't go to the 18th hole. And so Harold says, well, if he says not to, then obviously he's just lying. And they go to the 18th hole, and he's like, I told you not to go to the 18th hole.
Now you have to start over.
Now you have to start over. And he had to start over behind a family with unruly children.
I did find it funny that the jocks managed to get in there just because they had to pull over because their friend was sick because of all the booze he drank.
Yeah.
They just happened to be there.
The restaurant thing, yeah.
Boy, that family with those
green
kids,
team.
Those were some really, really bad kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were some brats.
Yeah.
Admittedly,
I would not, if they were my kids, I wouldn't have even put up with 5 minutes of it. It'd be like, okay, that's it. This is canceled.
Everybody's going back home and going to bed immediately.
yeah.
Oh yeah, that doesn't always work. I've definitely encountered some kids in the library that were. We had a screamer today, as a matter of fact.
So
Unfortunately, people with kids often treat places like their daycares.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
and then we had the one where it was the pinball museum, which
Yeah.
I mean the pinball place, which is a arcade. But the funny thing about that one was well, the blue teams thing where the guy's like, yes, I know this one. And it's like, well, what about the ball? He just knocks the ball down.
Yeah, it was
Made him sound like he was really smart there for a minute.
well, what was it? It was like there was a chair and an E and a
It was cherry or
Yeah.
something like
A
cherry.
pin and a ball.
yeah, but he ignored the ball and he's like chair E point. And he's so proud of himself. And for a minute there, we actually think, wow, this guy solved a clue. But then Harold's like, what about the ball? And he just picks it up and throws it.
Like, nope, he's still stupid.
Yeah. But what was it actually? It was a city. What was it? City something?
City pinball or something like that.
Yeah,
City pinball. Yes, there you are.
And then we had your Paul Rubens cameo there. And of course,
well,
they get into a nasty
This
fight
was an
there.
arcade a game place.
This
and the Zoltar look-alike.
We skipped an important plot point up until this point because some of the there were some various people who got separated. I think prior to this, if I'm remembering correctly, wasn't it? Was it the golf? Yes, because the Jeep was messed up.
Yeah,
the yellow team.
The one guy stayed back to fix it.
Well, this is where Scott vanishes, and Laura goes looking for him, and this is where we find out that not only is he pissed off at his brother, it's his birthday, and Adam hasn't even acknowledged or remembered it once, and he's really pissed off about this. So at the pinball thing, he's hanging back laughing at them while they're getting their asses kicked and going through that whole thing of quarters. And Laura notices and goes over and is like, well, what are you laughing about? And he's like, oh, that game's so easy. And she's like, here's your chance. Here's your chance to, Huh?
And Harold.
Yeah, because he says he plays it every Saturday. It's nothing.
Yeah.
And Harold Lucille is all obsessed about this mini Harold stuff.
Yeah.
Well, that's what really kind of lets them take their catch up at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, the way that goes, I mean, that's actually the Star Wars game.
Yes.
The Star Wars arcade game that they changed, and you had to beat it, which that would have been difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's when the kid takes off because, well, I mean, again, he only gives the kid attention when he does bad things. And so his brother does this thing and wins, and he's just like, yeah, whatever, we're moving on.
Right.
And they have to have that confrontation.
I wonder if, since Star Wars A New Hope was the year before, and they were playing the Star Wars arcade thing, that Disney was actually maybe slightly kind of marketing Star Wars in there with that arcade game.
Well, no, Disney had nothing to do with Star Wars at that time.
I know, which is weird.
What
It was a popular game at the time.
I think actually, Dave, you were the one that had us watch A Disturbance in the Force. One of the points they made in that documentary was that after A New Hope, but before Empire, this was actually the year Empire came out. And it was a couple of years after the abysmal holiday special. but they made the point that at first Lucas and his people were not anywhere close to the tight-fisted corporate machine they became, and there probably were some licensing oversights.
Yeah.
Which is maybe why they were able to do a spoof game this early on.
Well, we do get the resolution to the brother issue, because the brother runs away, and Adam finally does, after starting to go after them, get a change of heart, and then comes back and helps search for his brother, which we find, which of course they feel like they're way behind, but then the blue team has to come back, because the clue was about the airport. And the reason why the other teams were behind is that they all get into a massive freaking fight in the arcade.
Yeah.
And
it was more like a food fight, sort of.
It was more of let's trash the joint fight.
And I'll admit, looking at LAX, I mean,
and the nerds ended up coming into the arcade place trying to do it the right way, but they ended up in on the whole fray too.
Well, as soon as they went to the console, the green team broke the console, so they couldn't play.
Yeah. The good thing is that most of them ended up overhearing it from others, and then a lot of times they were just following the other teams or listening to, because one of them, I think it was the green team, that actually blurted it out loud, or because they blurted, some of the times somebody just blurted out the answer really loud and everybody heard it. But LAX was interesting in that one. Again, that's one I think the blue team did beat them there for. But and I'll admit, one of the coolest fixtures there is that little alien looking thing.
I think the first team that arrived was the white team.
No, it was the blue team. Because the blue team ended up ignoring the people first.
Well, okay. Well, I mean, I was going to say everyone ignored them. It was
but it was they were the first ones to run into them.
Okay.
That's the reason why, because they made a big deal of it the first time. That one I am certain, because I watched it today. So
okay.
But that little alien thing I see at LAX, I admit I didn't realize it had been there for so long. I've actually been up in there. There's a restaurant there. It's not in great repair right now, but then again, considering how old it is, but it's kind of a cool thing. It has like little 60s alien music as you're going up, because you're supposed to be into like a big alien spaceship. One of my goals, again, if I ever go back to LA. But yeah, I did like how it was, they basically, the clue was like 5:30 a.m. and they were trying to figure out what the hell that part meant.
Right.
But turned out to be an information.
It ended up being a radio station number, and that's what the white team figured out.
But but I did like how when they go in there, the blue team, it's like, you got these Hare Krishna people, and they're really insisting, take our free literature. He's like, no. And then eventually ended up taking it, but then they threw it away without even looking at it.
Oh, so just randomly to a point, I think Tammy made a point earlier about Michael J. Fox's age. This says that they cast him because the film was shot primarily at night, and they needed an actor who was over 18 but could pass for 15. When the studio was initially unconvinced, but one of the things that helped convince them was him standing next to the tallest cast members.
Admittedly, when he's right beside the guy who's playing his brother, he does look 15.
He does look a lot younger, yes. Yeah.
But the way they find out is that they all end up colliding with them eventually and causing the entire thing to scatter. So one of them picks it up and actually looks at it for once and finds out.
Mm-hmm.
Which I believe that's what leads them to the hotel, isn't it?
I do believe so.
And that's also about the time that Leon moves the whole group there, which is kind of sad because their command center was freaking awesome.
Mhm.
I mean, I love that map, and they had like the facsimiles of the little cars and stuff that they had, so they could move them to the different points.
And the police radio that the police officer was so darn interested in that the landlord actually broke.
Leon was too charismatic for their own good.
Apparently, the busty waitress was played by a stunt woman, Donna Garrett, who frequently doubled for Raquel Welch. Makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Good times.
The hotel was interesting because some of them got tossed out right away by
Oh,
security.
This is kind of hilarious. The directors found Paul Rubens workshopping Pee Wee Herman at a show
Yeah.
and said he had to be in the movie. Disney thought it was too weird and they didn't like the idea.
Because Pee Wee's Playhouse was in production a long time before the show. It was a Broadway show that he did. And it was actually for adults.
Well,
Which, in a way, if you look at Pee Wee's Playhouse today, it literally does have stuff that adults can get into. There's a lot of nuance in that. There was a lot of interesting dark comedy that Paul Rubens was into, among other dark things. But yeah, I've actually got one of those out of print DVDs that actually recorded his Broadway show when it was playing there. But yeah, I mean, personally, my favorite early role for him was still the hamburger guy in Nice Dreams. Hamburger. That's the guy said.
Good times.
We'll have to cover that one of these months, maybe. But it doesn't count for next month's theme. There are animals in it, but it's not a horror movie. I guess one could say it's the horrors of using weed, because the weed turns them into iguanas.
Here you go. Here you go, Brandon. You could choose Beverly Hills Chihuahua.
Yeah, it is horrific. But the hotel is where the whole thing goes into. Of course, the blue team, white team have already teamed up. So they end up getting, or not blue team, red team. Is it red team? Yeah, red team, white team. Yeah. And so they come in as like hot because they get thrown out. So they end up sneaking back in as hotel staff, like maids and busboys.
First, we got to mention that I think we mentioned, but this is about the point in the plot where the landlady finally tries to throw Leon out, calls the cops on him, and the cop shows up, and he is fascinated by the whole thing and instead has her arrested.
Yeah.
And while they're reading her rights, everyone leaves all at once. Every tenant leaves to get to the hotel for the final leg of the thing. So they
go and take her to the hotel, have her sit on the bed in handcuffs.
It's like throw the old bag in the back of the car.
She ends up, of course, calling security, but this is after the white team creates enough of a disturbance with the blue team. Actually, no, it's because they get the calls like the Hell's Angels are outside, and it's because the white team and red team are riding around in little mopeds.
Because we all know that that's what the Hell's Angels look like. That is their vibe to a T.
But they all end up racing because the final clue is the express elevator up to the 27th floor, but then the elevators get shut down.
Well, plus because they took the express elevators, there's no 27th floor on the elevators.
I also found it funny that blue team had to take the stairs, and it was.
So real quick though, we got to ask the expert, because Tammy, I guess you do a lot of car shows. I'm guessing there's probably also going to be a lot of Hell's Angels at those things. Did these people resemble that crowd?
Not. There's some bikes show up, but
okay,
not a whole lot.
I've seen some shows where both happen at the same venue, so that's like sure, but
I mean, there was bikes at the one show with the blessing, but otherwise, yeah, unless it depends on how it's advertised. If it says it's a bike and car show, then the bikes show up. So,
but yeah. But do you ever see a crowd like this?
nah, not quite like that.
I don't think anybody's seeing a crowd just like this, especially with the twins. I mean,
I've seen vehicles that are comical, like David had made comment about the jocks meat wagon. You know, yes, I've definitely seen vehicles that are done up and they're fun and they're funny. You know.
Well, yeah, I've often seen someone show up with something that looks similar to the mystery van from Scooby-Doo.
Right.
Over the weekend, they had the Trans Am from Bandit, Smokey and the Bandit.
Sometimes a car that looks like the General Lee will show up.
Of course.
And they had a cutout of Sally Field.
I saw a VW Bug once in Roanoke that was painted to look exactly like a Cowboys football helmet. I was like,
there's been some older rusty vehicles that look like gangster cars where they call them like something like Rat Pink or something like that.
Speaking of Forrest of bugs, though, it's interesting. The green team has a green bug, but this poster here shows what is that? Like a burnt red, orange, almost. It's like a reddish sienna, basically. And then the truck, which was bright red, is blue in the poster. It's kind of interesting how that happened. But,
yeah.
I don't know. But they had some interesting vehicles that they were working with in this one. I gotta say, this is a big ass hotel that they're at, which again makes you wonder how much his resources are.
oh, Leo's got tons of resources in this thing. That's the weird part about it.
I did like when they all file upstairs to that room, the concierge said something to the effect of something like there's only a 2-bed room or something like that. It's like, I don't know what he thought they were going to do up there, but but I'll admit it would have been hard to fit that many people in most hotel rooms. They probably must have. It makes you think they must have had a penthouse suite, which completely contradicts what the concierge said. But either that or that hotel just has huge rooms.
It's very possible. It's just one of those things that just goes over the head.
Yeah.
But of course, it culminates with the busybody getting to the phone and calling the security again to go toss them from upstairs, which gets there just in time because admittedly Scott comes in clutch again with the retainer, which the guy uses to get the elevator working.
Right. So yeah, earlier the blue team had stumbled into the what am I trying to say? The
power room.
Yeah, the power room. I couldn't think of that for some reason. And then they decided, well, we're just going to it's because they got the clue about just after the yellow team did, and they had to go up elevators. And then they had to go back down the elevator and go back up a different elevator. And they were like, enough of this.
Wasn't it room 2704 or something like that?
Yeah. 27th floor. the original elevators went straight to the roof and couldn't, come back down to that room. But I think it was they couldn't get into the other elevator. So that's when they decided to shut them off and walk or run up the stairs, which, needless to say, Harold going up 27 floors was not his idea of a good time.
No, that was actually probably not so great an idea with the shape he was in.
Right.
I mean, he started off good, and of course, a lot of his teammates were doing fine. He,
and
however,
at one
was not.
point, his teammate, I think it's the one that ate half of his snacks, said something like, "You shouldn't have gone all night without eating." Yeah. Yeah. Because what are friends for, right?
Yeah, really. But they end up getting there basically at around the same time. And of course, Harold gets the fire hose and is ready to use it. But they also notice that the security team was also trapped in the elevator right up on the floor. So they time it. So when the guy actually gets the fire hose running, they end up basically showering the security, letting the security do the job for them of removing them.
Yes.
And of course, with the yellow team, which you knew they were going to win.
Oh, yeah.
With them winning.
Mm-hmm.
But that was, and of course, then them having the nice buffet downstairs. They win a plaque, essentially, which is kind of sad if you think about it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But still, they did manage to win it, and everybody kind of gets together and parties together at the thing, except for Harold goes down and with them ready to take him in and tell his father about it.
Mm-hmm.
And
sees the buffet table and just loses his mind, just like the other guy with the blue ribbon beer vat.
Well, in all fairness, you might as well at that point.
Yeah. And he ends up pushing his girlfriend into the fountain, and she's just sitting there sopping wet, like.
And that's Midnight Madness.
Mm-hmm.
So, any other thoughts about the plot before we go into the other stuff?
Not really. I mean, it was just as zany as like those, like the, like I've said before, the great race, or rat race, or
As the man says, it's very interesting but stupid.
I will say I like this better than It's a Mad, 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 Mad World and Rat Race. There were far less cameos in them. Yeah. But I did like it better than those two. I haven't seen The Great Race yet, though.
I don't believe I've seen that either.
But
older one. I think it's even before It's a Mad, Mad World.
I want to say it won an Oscar, The Great Race did. But yeah, it was a fun film for me. I know. And I thought, it's fun. The likelihood that y'all have not seen this is fairly high, and I need to correct that.
Even Around the World in 80 Days, it kind of has kind of a race type thing to it. So to me, I put that in the same category as well.
A little bit.
So, well, let's go to production.
Okay.
Though there weren't a crap ton of special effects, they did do a lot of effects, like destruction effects, and there were a ton of different sets and locations.
Yeah.
And I've learned over time that having that many locations is expensive, especially around LA. So I got to give them this. They did put in as far as that, and that van is actually pretty cool.
Maybe they had a Leon,
because that van, I mean, it had like the little observation deck and all that. It was pretty cool.
Right. I gotta say that computer didn't look all that spiffy, but it definitely. I will admit you're probably right. It doesn't look like a slick high gloss production, but the number of different places that were used and sets that were used is impressive. Yeah,
I do think that it does need to be remastered or taken and spruced up and given to a boutique label, or maybe even not Criterion. If not Criterion, Arrow.
I would absolutely see this on Kino Lorber.
I could see a Vinegar Syndrome.
Vinegar Syndrome, or hell, even Arrow. I could see Arrow doing
Vinegar
it.
Syndrome doing it.
Yeah.
Let's see. What did this cost to make? Well, I know how much it made.
Yeah.
It made $2.9 million at the box office.
Okay.
Which is not that shabby when you consider it's 1980.
Yeah.
For the type of film, I'm trying to see how much it actually cost to make it. It does not say. Which I'm looking at the as I look on IMDb Pro, because why not pay for it? So
well, I'm looking at the regular IMDb and it says see detailed box office info. Well, I guess that's not really the box office, but
yeah, the box office is what it made.
Yeah.
So it didn't really say how much it made. I mean, it says how much it made. It doesn't say how much they cost to make it.
Technically, how much it's made is the gross minus all the costs, but
well, we don't know what that was.
Right.
But apparently, the lifetime gross was only released here in Canada. So I guess that's something. But yeah, I was curious how much this cost. It doesn't sound like it lost money, so that's a good thing. Well, it grossed something, so yeah. Oh well. Any case, maybe they're ashamed of how much it cost.
People do tend to be really, really, really tight-lipped about the cost of movies. It's very annoying sometimes.
But as far as things go, music-wise, normally I'm not a big disco person, but I don't know why, but the Midnight Madness theme did feel catchy to me. I mean, it's in my head still, so I mean that's something.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can remember. I mean, other than the Pabst Blue Ribbon theme and then playing the that Side by Side, or what was it? No, Heart and Soul.
Yeah.
But what about y'all? What are y'all's thoughts music-wise?
I thought about this score a couple of times. Like, I was like, this is kind of an interesting, kind of goofy. I'm probably going to forget about it as soon as the movie's over. And that pretty much tracks. Overall, the best use of music definitely came in that piano scene.
Yeah, I have to kind of agree.
We have to agree on that too.
I wasn't really paying attention to the music behind it, so I couldn't really say whether I recognized it or not, or who actually played it or whatnot. But I think the most unique thing of this movie is the Pabst Ribbon song theme. So. And at first, when I thought they said it said 8,800 keys or whatever, I was thinking, well, maybe it's something related to 88 Fingers Louie. But
I automatically knew it was piano related when I saw that, but partly it's because he got the 88 Keys character in Dick Tracy.
Well, the guy who did the orchestration, Bob Florence, is best known for Monster-in-Law. Big film that.
Yeah.
Stick. Okay. And Sharky's Machine.
Oh.
We all know about Sharky's Machine.
Oh, yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Burt Reynolds in that?
I have no clue. I didn't even know what that was when they came in.
It's a movie. I have
Yeah,
it.
it is Burt Reynolds. Burt Reynolds directed it.
Oh wow. Huh.
Six Pack directed it. Okay.
And made a lot more than this film did, gross wise. Oh my gosh. Made a heck of a lot more. 33 million. But well, with that, why don't we go ahead and get to favorites? Wrap this bad boy up. So I guess let's do something fun with this. Of course, favorite scene. We already talked about who our team we rooted for was, but why don't we do this? What is your favorite raunchy comedy film? And I guess we'll start with Dave, since you were last for our first
Favorite raunchy comedy?
Yeah, favorite raunchy comedy in this vein. Maybe a little bit wacky, a little bit raunchy, or maybe even full on raunchy. Really,
Are we talking this same era, or are we talking
any era? Okay. And favorite scene, of course.
I'm trying to think, because all right,
Stoinky Beach.
no. Favorite raunchy comedy? Maybe Moist Fury.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
And favorite scene?
Favorite scene in here? I would have to say when they figured out the Pabst ribbon theme song. I think that's kind of unique because Pabst beer is from here in Wisconsin. So I would have to imagine that that some of what was filmed of Pabst was here in Wisconsin, if not LA. I don't know if there was any Pabst beer companies in LA. So
there was something about that on IMDb. I can't remember what it was, but they said they filmed outside of a Pabst location.
Well, I can look that up real quick. Google is our friend. Yes.
It's in 1980 North Main Street, LA, California. Yep.
really,
Yep. There is one. Then there is one there still.
Oh.
So, Tammy, what is your favorite scene and favorite raunchy comedy?
I'm not really sure what to say for a raunchy comedy.
How about Young Frankenstein?
I wouldn't call that terribly raunchy, but
Well, at least at this level.
Or Blazing Saddles?
Yeah, Blazing Saddles is one I like a lot. Favorite scene would be, I like the whole thing with the pianos when they get going and everything on that. I thought that was cool.
And how about you, Jake? What's your favorite raunchy comedy, and what's your favorite? What was your favorite scene?
That's kind of tricky on both counts. Favorite scene, I gotta say, if only because it's the one I keep coming back to, the guy jumping in the vat of beer just was hilarious to me. The whole fact that they put that in a movie from Disney was hilarious to me. And I would say the piano sequence probably would be at least a fairly close second. I feel like there's some others too, but that would probably be one of the main ones. And other than that, as far as raunchy comedies, that's such a broad topic that it's really hard to say, oh yeah, this would definitely be my favorite.
Or at least one you like a lot.
Right.
Austin Powers?
Well, I mean, that theoretically is a contender.
It is raunchy.
This is true.
Actually, I would like to change mine. Flesh
Okay.
Gordon 1 and 2.
Oh, okay.
Oh, good God.
I feel like if I'm going to go with what you guys said before and acknowledge Mel Brooks as belonging to this genre, then definitely several of his movies are strong contenders. But if I'm trying to be to make it easier, I'll try to be as specific as I can on narrowing the focus to this type of raunchy comedy centering on students and like a certain goal or whatever. I do have a strong personal nostalgic attachment to the American Pie series.
Huh?
I guess I would say American Pie.
Well, that's definitely raunchy comedy.
Yes. That would definitely be a major one there. So we'll go with that. I'm not going to say that's my number one favorite choice, but that would be close to, in terms of this kind of raunchy comedy. We'll go with that.
Well, my favorite scene is the piano scene where the blue team does. It's like probably, like I said, the only thing that I found redeeming of them was that. And my favorite raunchy comedy is probably Hamburger the movie, which I got to thank Mo for helping me come across that, because that one's kind of hard to find as well. But there's something about it that's just, it's as weird and wacky as this, and it has a raunchy nature, much like this, which is kind of semi-innocent. I would say Hot Dog the movie, but I didn't like Hot Dog the movie as much as I thought I would. But darned if it ain't raunchy. I mean, I watched that recently. I mean, in the hotel, you see full-on nudity as the person gets up out of the hot tub to answer the bell at the desk of the hotel. And I'm just like, okay.
Didn't see that in this one.
No. I think even then Disney had some standards there. But still, you got away with a little bit more in PG back then than you can now.
Well,
but
PG?
That's all. Yeah. It's
PG.
Wow. So with that being said, I handed it back to you, Dave. That was my pick for.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for listening to our discussion, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. Let us know down in the comments what you thought of the movie, what you thought of our discussion. And we're definitely not going to stop there as far as Disney live action from like the 80s and the 70s. I believe that was the theme. But why don't we go around and tell the audience a little bit about ourselves and what we do. So, Tammy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I go on this channel with Dave and another one and talk with everybody about the movies and check out new ones. And I got my own collection also, and it's just a lot of fun to go on both channels. And then being summertime, I have enjoyed taking my car out to the car shows.
Alrighty. Heading over to you, Jake. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Okay, I'm Kotobukijake. I'm the sometime co-host of SeptumSin versus the World on YouTube, where we do various projects related primarily to physical media. And as Brandon said, we just finished filming a lengthy Disney program. We do occasional pickup videos and other fun stuff like that. And recently did a discussion last week on the anime Bakano for the anime anticlimax. And for those who haven't seen it, watch Bakano. It's a lot of fun. And also not something that would be considered Disney fare under most circumstances. And then, I keep very busy most of the time, and I'm always, of course, adding new things to the pile. Like yesterday was a road trip because it was such a gorgeous day. I had to do a road trip, but I did get to go to the beach briefly, so that was nice. It was very nice. But it was, but I do make time to watch movies once a week to join these fine folks and talk movies. And, we're also still working on the Versus Awards, getting ready for the upcoming goings on. And that'll do for me.
Alrighty. Heading over to you, Brandon. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I am SeptumSin of SeptumSin versus the World. The only thing that's not really been said by Jake is, of course, check out our playlist for the Disney, that Disney collection. We go through a lot of Disney history. I mean, with 7 parts worth of Disney history.
I couldn't find any results.
See, Dave was already searching. And many of these films, matter of fact, I think all of these films are on that list. And were featured and their physical media counterparts were featured in the video. So, and I'm sure Dave will tell us what's next because it's his pick next.
Yes. Compliance. Well, my name is Dave Streggy. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. So thank you for coming along with us on this fantabulous journey we've been having, where we've been discussing some of the live-action Disney films from the 70s and 80s. It's been interesting so far. But next week, I do believe we are covering Flight of the Navigator. So Navigators, start your engines. We'll be there next week. But I do moonlight under a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where I also go on Sunday mornings around 12:30 Central to go on and discuss various films. And this coming Sunday, we'll be discussing Jim Henson's The Labyrinth. So that'll be fun. Haven't covered it on that channel yet, so might as well. And definitely going to be interesting. But I do some video pickups and video reviews from time to time, and whatnot. Then also I do some gameplay of different games that I'm playing. The last couple of times I've been playing Soul Calibur 6 and Tekken 7. At least the storylines behind those. Didn't realize that Soul Calibur had such a interesting backstory there. But in any case, also still at work on the second anthology to the Tales of the Forgotten. And just so you know, Tales of the Forgotten is still for sale on our Kunaki site or whatnot. Or not Kunaki, Zunaki, Kunaki, whichever.
Yeah, Kunaki. It's in the description down below.
Okay, yeah. So if you haven't gotten a chance to see the first anthology of the Tales of the Forgotten, look in the description of each of our descriptions, you'll find a link to it, and you'll be able to buy it, along with Amityville webcam and various other copies of DVDs and Blu-rays. So, like, share, and subscribe. And Brandon, did you have anything else to add? Or
Nope, that's all we got. That's all she wrote.
alrighty, everybody have a good evening and have some midnight madness. So, everyone, say goodnight.
Good night.
Night, everyone.